Yes.
Yeah.
I like walked up and I saw him, and he was like, I could tell he was still a little like trying to get it all done, and I was like, man, I like whispered over to him, do you need any help, Dave? He's like, no, I'm okay. I was like, okay. But yeah, I could tell.
Yeah, well, by then I like
had been panicking for.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about it, and especially not on air.
Right.
We can talk about it later.
Fair enough. All right.
You guys sound good.
Sweet.
We sound good.
This is the best we will
been
sound
told.
the whole episode.
That's what we've been told. We sound good.
All right.
Do we look good, though?
Probably not, but there's nothing we can do about that.
All right.
Let's just roll.
Oh, I need to do stuff.
Yeah, you have to.
That's me.
Yeah.
Patience is a virtue.
Remember, you have to like push the buttons at the same time. Everything's set up for you on Cubase.
Yeah, it was running already, so it was ahead of 0. Right here.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Today, I am here to give you the assurance that I have not forgotten you.
If we want to see the new evangelization become more than just jargon, if we want to see it grow legs and gain traction and change the world, we have got to take seriously our responsibilities as husbands and fathers, and especially as sons of God.
I want to propose to you then that something that our world is desperately in need of in the midst of this crisis is Catholic Christian masculinity.
If you want to be a good father, then bring your children to confession with you.
I can't get there unless I become a man of ascesis, a man of asceticism, a man of training.
A man not doing penance, a man not disciplined, is not a man.
You guys have upped your game.
You know what, guys? I gotta say, I love the concept of Man Show.
Warning: the Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We are on the Lord's team, the winning side. So raise your glass. Adam Minahan here, sitting with David Niles. We are sans Juan this evening, but his future brother-in-law is becoming Catholic this weekend.
Yeah. So we allowed it.
We gave him the night off.
We totally forgot about it, but we allowed it.
That's why we're a little late this evening.
We called him and like, Juan, where are you? And he's like, I'm in Shreveport, bro. And I was like, what the heck are you doing in Shreveport?
we got an episode to record. And then we realized,
he's like, remember I told you? And I was like, yeah, I was just kidding about that.
We were just joking. Yeah. Hey, I want to give a shout out. Can I give a shout out? I haven't given a shout out in a while.
I will allow it.
I want to give a shout out.
And I encourage it.
I want to give a shout out to Deacon Gary Beam.
To the Beamster.
To Deacon Gary Beam. He's a deacon at the Church of St. Benedict, and he gave a rockin' homily.
Yeah, he did give a good homily today.
And you know what? He was fearless in his homily because he talked definitely about some controversial things.
Right.
And there's obviously going to be people that were stirred up about it, but I know that there are priests that listen to this show. I know that there are deacons that listen to this show, seminarians.
Yeah. So he broached the subject of politics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he didn't like go full force into it, but he obviously was referring to politics.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing, this is just my beef about political discussions. It's not actually about the discussion, but it's about people's reaction to political discussions. Because some people will say like, oh, you shouldn't talk about, politics and blah, 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 blah. And I think that they do that because they've adopted an attitude that is sort of like a moral relativism politically, that, don't do that because that's just your opinion and everybody else has a different opinion and, blah, 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 blah. But the truth is, one person is right.
Mm-hmm.
That some political opinions are right and some are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if it was just about like, oh, what color is the best color? Obviously, there is no best color. Okay, then that would be
Even though it's orange.
I mean, yeah. See, so there you go. There's one example
right.
of what could be the best color. But that would be a fruitless discussion. You're just really wasting your time. I mean, other than just the exercise of debate.
Right.
But with political conversations, there is a right and there is a wrong answer. You know, and sometimes you're talking about degrees of wrongness between both options. You know, it's not
most of the time.
Yeah.
These days.
I mean, as South Park said once, you have to choose between a turd sandwich and another bad option.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, but why I say that is because it takes virtue to stand up. It takes fortitude. It takes courage to get up there and say stuff that know you're going to get backlash for.
I appreciated what he did.
Yeah. So even though
because one of the candidates has called actually one of the vice presidential candidates, who also happens to be a woman, has called the Knights of Columbus a racist organization.
Right.
And so it's like, well, as a Catholic, that is a little bit offensive. I'm not actually offended personally, but that doesn't mean that was not an offensive thing to say.
Right.
Because the thing is, I don't ever get offended by anybody just because, if you're saying something to me to offend me, you're clearly a moron. And I don't really care what morons have to say. That is my actual outlook on. I mean, it's and I will pray for you. You know, I'm not. I don't say that or feel that way to be mean to anybody, but it's why am I going to let the opinion or words of an idiot or somebody who's just maybe is on the internet somewhere? Why am I going to let that affect me?
How I feel?
Yeah.
I just think I just am glad. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be a provocateur for the sake of being provocative,
right?
But there is an importance of being able to speak the truth, knowing that you're going to get backlash, but knowing that you have to say it because it's your duty to say it, and God has ordained it to so.
See.
So anyway, I just want to give him a shout out because that doesn't get brought up enough.
See, senor.
So.
See.
If this is your first time listening to this show, the first thing we do is
welcome to you, sir.
I assume because of the title of the show, there's going to be new listeners. So if this is your first time, the first thing we do is we open, review, and enjoy a beverage,
a manly beverage.
Then we highlight a gear, and then we get into the topic.
We're not drinking sarsaparilla around here.
No, although those are delicious.
Are they? I have no idea. I said that, and I was like, I wonder what that is. Might be good.
I think it's like black cherry vanilla soda, isn't it? Isn't that right?
What it is?
Oh, Jim doesn't know. Okay. So tonight we're
is that an old drink? He said I'm not that old.
Yeah,
it's an old drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sarsaparilla, say. So tonight we're drinking Kilchoman. It's a vintage 2010. It's a limited edition. And Kilchoman is a distillery that I really enjoy because it does have
9 years.
9 years. Yeah. So what this whiskey is it's 42 barrels of bourbon barrels that is first fill with 3 sherry butts, and then they put them all together. And
3 sherry butts on the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
How do they get 3 sherry butts in one barrel?
No, 3 different sherry butts.
Okay.
Oloroso sherry butts.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but
and they blend it all together.
I'll look it up later.
Let me give you the tasting notes, and then I'll let you. Or you want to give your tasting notes first? It smells good. This tastes
smells
good.
So good.
The thing about this is it's 50 ppm, so it is going to be peaty.
I can definitely smell the peat.
Lafroig runs around 40 to 45.
Oh, wow.
So, but because of the Oloroso and because of Kilchoman in general, they have a little bit more of a vanilla, a little bit more sweeter taste to it. So it's going to be a nice blend of whiskeys, I think. So the note says it's clean. Coastal notes jump out at first. Sea spray, lemongrass.
That's what I was going to say. That you can really taste the ocean in that dram right there. Like, it's very seaweedy, very ocean water.
Mm-hmm. And then the palate, it says big ashy peat smoke with smoked lemon, barbecued pineapple, and banana. Don't get that. I haven't tried it yet.
I'd have to search for that a little longer.
Toasted coconut and salted smoked almonds. And then the finish is more pipe tobacco, rolling peat smoke, and drying oak. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't get any of the fruitiness. But I also do not claim to be the definitive tongue. I really like it. I mean, it is really good. It is a lot like Lafroig. It doesn't have if you were to just try it side by side, you could tell, oh, that's not Lafroig. Lafroig has a very distinct flavor that's just like
good,
it's a Lafroig flavor. This doesn't have that Lafroigness.
I love the finish. It's very long.
I don't say that in a bad way. It's just you can tell it's not that, because it is tempting to compare it to Lafroig, being that it is so peaty, and it's that kind of whiskey.
That is a very nice dram, though.
It is really nice. I do like the salty, like seaweed flavor that you get. Isn't that weird? Because I would never want to eat seaweed. If you put like a bowl of seaweed in front of me,
I do get a little bit of the banana. I don't get the toasted coconut.
Are you gonna eat any of the seaweed? I mean,
I've had seaweed before on like sushi.
Really?
Yeah, they do
okay,
sushi.
okay, yeah, but I mean,
that's not what I'm talking about. It's very interesting though, because it doesn't have it mellows out on the palate in the middle, and then it picks back up the aggressiveness at the very end. It's a long finish, but the first part of it is a little aggressive, mellows out, and then comes back at you.
Yeah, I agree. It is definitely a long finish. You know what? I do get some banana at the very end, like now here at the very finish, like as it's sitting. Now I can kind of get some banana, but not on the
really good.
Not in the front when they were.
It's very complex.
Not at the beginning.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
it's very complex. So
sort of like my taxes.
Really?
No, actually,
mine are very easy.
Not hard. Yeah, especially like over the last 4 years, they've been a lot easier.
Right.
Who itemizes now? I mean, right?
I wish I didn't.
I wish I was itemizing. That means I'm obviously giving a lot of money to charity,
which I would love to do.
I don't have enough money to give that much to charity.
Dave, let me ask you this: for the people who are new to the show, why are we drinking? That's a good question.
Yeah, so we drink on the show because, well, there's really a lot of reasons. One of them is to promote the notion of holy leisure. The other one is to promote moderation, temperance. God made the things of this earth good, and they should be enjoyed for their goodness. And so that's what we seek to do here on the Catholic Man Show, to enjoy life to its fullest and promote virtue at the same time.
You can look up Catholic Answers Focus. We did a whole episode with Cy Kellett on this very topic. Just Google that and you can listen to that as well. So when we get back, we actually have a man gear today. Excited to give it to you. We're on the Lord's team,
the winning side.
So raise your glass. Sweet.
El sweet.
Somebody's. Is it yours that's still on?
Down.
Okay, maybe I'm hearing that.
The Jefe. No, that's okay. Jeff. That's not Jim. Jefe is Jeff.
Yeah. That's okay.
It's
no problem.
Hime.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I did not show the bottle well enough.
Isn't it weird? You have to hold it back here. And
so that way
you want to do this.
I want to do this, but you guys will see.
But see, it's not in focus.
It's not in focus. But if I do this.
In focus, not in focus.
See
also, Adam cannot push it towards the camera. That is a struggle for him.
So anyway, yeah, there it is. Okay, let's keep rolling. I'm ready. What I say.
I'm ready. I'm gonna turn this top one off. See that? I turned that off.
Okay, that's fine. I'm good with that.
Some things are superfluous.
Superfluous.
Mm-hmm. That is a tricky word.
It is. It's like when I first
you want to say superfluous. Wait, is it superfluous?
Superfluous.
Or superfluous? Superfluous.
Superfluous.
Did you say the cost?
Oh, it's about it's $100 bottle.
We'll say it on the other side.
Yep.
I can do it. See, I'm going to attempt a left-handed mouse click here. Nailed it. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. And Jim Spencer, we're sans Juan Posada. He's in Shreveport right now, having a great time without us.
Mm-hmm. Super selfish.
I told him to put $1,000 on black for me. Mm-hmm. I bet he doesn't even do it. That's the thing about him.
He said he would.
He said he would. I'll bet he doesn't even do it.
Yeah.
You know. But thanks for listening to everybody. Everybody, thanks for listening today, and thanks for joining us on Facebook/YouTube. If it looks like I'm bleeding out of my eyes at the moment, don't worry. It's just chlorine.
Thought you've been playing video games for the last 27 hours.
Till my eyes bleed.
Yeah.
I tried that one time. Not on purpose. Like, I wasn't trying to make my eyes bleed, but I did play video games for probably that long.
Man, that is a long time.
College, you know. Yeah. Just do anything.
We're drinking a little Kilchoman's 2010 vintage.
It is so good.
It's about $100 bottle.
It's $100. So this is going to drop you a Benjamin.
Yes, but there's not very. It was a limited release, so there's not very many of them out there.
What's it say? It says $97.99. So yeah,
it's a
plus tax.
It's a limited release, so if you can find it, I definitely think it would be one for the whiskey shelf.
You know, so there's some states where you don't pay tax on groceries. Does whiskey count as a grocery? Like, do you get out of?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So we're gonna jump into the man gear.
Okay.
The man gear is the idea came from my brother-in-law Holden Bell. He gave me this idea, and it actually does really well piggybacking off of our last episode when we talked about the home.
Yes.
And making sure to take care of your yard and things. And it's called T-Nex, T-Nex, N-E-X.
Okay.
And it's a chemical that you put on your yard that allows your grass. It keeps your grass from growing too as fast as what it normally does, but it doesn't kill the grass.
Right.
It doesn't brown the grass. It doesn't hinder it in any way as far as like disease or anything like that. All it does is it stunts its growth basically.
Yeah.
And so if you're a guy who has a big yard that doesn't like to mow, and you're looking for a way to slow your grass from growing so much, this would be a sweet man gear. So
even if you water it and you keep it really green, it still just won't grow.
It won't grow as fast.
Yeah. Because it will grow.
It will grow, yes. But it gives it time also to. My understanding is it improves the color of the grass as well. It greens it up as well. So anyway, he's he knows everything about yards. Holden does, and so he was telling me about this. And I had no idea about it. So it comes in this big bottle. It is like a gallon jug. And the jug is expensive. It's like $150 or something like that. But you only use about 3/4 of an ounce on a average size yard. So it's going to last you a long time.
Yeah.
And basically, like
this is just something that anybody can go and buy?
Yeah, you can go buy it on Amazon right now.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And if let's say you mow your yard every 5 days, it'll probably push it out to where you only have to mow your yard every 8 to 12 days.
Yeah. Okay.
Depending. So especially like, you know, how you go on your month-long vacation every year.
It's 2 months, but you
know. 2 months. Yes.
I'm still on vacation. I'm bilocating right now. Right.
It would be good to put on your yard before you leave, so that way you don't come back to a jungle in your yard.
Yeah. Yeah, so I could see that. I'm going to be honest. I have a little bit of a hesitancy embracing this man gear. Because it seems to me to violate like some just principles of nature, some of the natural law about messing with stuff that shouldn't be, you know, like there's just something in me that's like a little bit unsure about this, you know, like they're going to like find out like, oh, turns out it also turns you into a small person, you know, or
golf courses use this a lot as well. Yes.
I believe that.
Yep.
But the thing is, I don't know enough about it to embrace it personally. I like the idea, but also the other thing is that I don't like stuff that helps you avoid work just for the sake of avoiding work.
Well, but
you know what I mean?
I do understand
do you see
that.
Do you know what I mean?
I get that, but to me, it's like, okay, good. It gives me more time to get my flower beds in order, or my vegetable garden, or you know, just other things that I need to make sure I'm doing in the yard. So anyway, I really like it.
I do see what you're saying, like, especially for me, like when I'm gone for the 6 months, That could be good so that my yard.
I'm not going to have to mow it.
Right, exactly.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So,
although
anyway, it's called T-Nex, N-E-X.
T-Nex.
Mm-hmm. So
it's not like a T-shirt.
No.
That's just the chemical.
Correct.
And it won't kill you.
It will not kill you.
Are you sure?
That's what Holden said. So if it does,
stuff like this, I feel like is either going to do nothing or like give you superpowers.
Holden's been putting it on his yard, and he says it's been working really well.
Like this is the kind of stuff that if you at the factory fall into a big vat, like you come out with some superpowers or something. That's how it goes.
That'd be cool. Depending on the superpower.
I know it, and like in the movies, it just works so well.
Right.
The whole like falling into the nuclear waste.
Right.
Except for people like the Penguin. Because isn't that what happened to him?
I don't know, dude.
I don't remember either.
Marvel guy.
But for a lot of people anyway, it works great. And
DC, whatever it is, I don't even know. Anyway,
yeah, Batman is DC.
Okay, so anyway, I wanted to touch on that because I thought it was a good piggyback off of last week.
It's something to look into for sure.
Definitely something to look into.
Because there really is nothing better. Like if you go on a walk through your neighborhood and you come across that yard that just looks amazing,
pristine
condition. There's just something so beautiful about a well-maintained yard.
No doubt.
And I'm going to say this. I think that if you have a healthy yard, there's nothing wrong with walking on it, okay? Don't be that guy who's like, don't walk in my yard.
Get off my grass.
Right, exactly. It's like, why don't you go back inside, sir, okay, and do something productive with your life other than just stare outside your window waiting for someone to accidentally step on your grass. Like a healthy yard you should be able to walk on it. Otherwise, it's like, is it really that healthy if my footprints are going to like crush your yard? Or
I just like to bring beauty. I like to try to bring beauty.
I know, but it's like the people who are anal about it, it's like, you need a life.
It's okay. Please,
sir, I'd like to invite you to have a life. This is a personal invitation.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I hear you.
Are you with me? I'm not sure that you are.
I don't know. I don't know.
What?
I don't know.
You are the get off my yard?
No, it depends on what it is.
We're not talking about walking through flower beds. We're talking about walking on grass.
I understand. I don't want to get into it, though. I'm not interested in getting into this.
Really?
This combo. Because it's going to take too long.
Well, you could just say one way or the other.
So, but I want to actually get into the topic.
Okay.
I want to jump into the topic early this evening because I think that it's going to take us a little while to get through it. And if you're listening on the radio, go and make sure you download the podcast because odds are we're not going to be able to get through all of this within the allotted time. So we'll add this to the podcast and you can get it on YouTube as well. So if you're listening on the radio right now, you can subscribe to the Catholic Man Show on all the platforms or whatever. But I came across this it's not an article, I guess it's essay, maybe more of an essay.
You don't think it's an article?
I mean, I guess it is.
I'd call it an article.
Okay, from Dr. Peter Kreeft. He's a stud.
Kreeft. It looks like it should be Kreeft, but
it's Kreeft.
Whatever.
He's a philosophy stud. He's a professor at Boston College. At least he was. I don't know if he still is or not. But
yeah, I don't know.
He's authored a lot of books.
A lot of stuff. A lot of great books.
Yes. Has a good Thomistic understanding to most things.
Yeah. But also speaks in a way that you can understand.
Right. Yeah. A lot of his books are very digestible. He does the Summa of the Summa and the shorter Summa of the Summa. So just to break it down,
getting close to where I'm at right there.
Yeah. And so he wrote this article, and we'll link it to the show notes. But it's about is there sex in heaven? And when I clicked on the article, I was like, wow. I didn't really read it. I just kind of like everybody does, you kind of see how long the article is. Like, how much time am I going to invest reading this? And it was long. I was like, wow, that is a lot of quote unquote spilled ink over a topic that's very easy to say, no, let's move on.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was thinking like, man, that is long. I wonder what he has to say. He's a great thinker, and I'm interested in what he has to say. So anyway, I sent it over to you, and I emailed you, and I said, hey, what do you think about this? Would this be a cool topic? And you were game as well. So I wanted to just kind of like run through some of the things that he had to say, but then kind of give some thought, get your thoughts on it, and see what you have to say about it as well.
Sure.
So, is there sex in heaven?
Yes.
Okay.
Depending on what you mean.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why this is such a loaded question. I don't know. Maybe loaded question is not the right way to say it, but the problem is that we have all come to adopt a misunderstood definition for sex.
Right. Yeah, there's a linguistic change.
Right.
To the trivial word of sex that is changed, from like intercourse to just who we are as a person.
Right.
So he lays out 4 principles, and we'll list these 4 principles, and then we can kind of jump into it on the other side of this break. But the 4 principles that he has are, number 1 is sex is something you are, not something that you do. Number 2 is the principle is the alternate to chauvinism and is not egalitarianism.
Okay.
Number 3 is sex is spirit. I just said number. Okay, good. I did.
You could be German. The Germans they do it this way. Yeah.
Good. Sex is spiritual.
Okay.
And number 4, sex is cosmic.
Okay.
And so those are the 4 principles that he says this is not something that I came up with. This is not original.
Okay.
He's just pulling from he pulls from Aquinas a lot as well.
Yeah.
In this, and C.S. Lewis and a lot of other great thinkers.
I was reading it on my phone, and I encountered a couple times in the article where he would quote somebody, and I couldn't tell who he was quoting, and I thought maybe it's just because I was on my phone. It wouldn't. I don't know, but I could tell he was quoting heavy people.
Right. So he puts this all together to kind of answer this question of is there sex in heaven?
Yeah.
And so when we get back on this other side of the break, we'll jump into the first principle, which is sex is something you are, not something you do. We'll be right back.
So you don't think it's fine, like, for people to walk on your grass?
Okay, so here's where I stand about this. Is that I'm okay with people walking on my grass.
Yeah.
But then you get into, okay, what happens if you have kids riding their bikes on your grass? What happens if you have tricycles on the grass? And then what happens is it creates ruts, it kills the grass. And so it's a slippery slope of allowing people to walk on your grass. Like, obviously, I don't care about if people walk on my grass.
I walk on your grass.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, that's fine. But when you have a bunch of kids in the neighborhood,
yeah,
I don't want to be I don't care. I mean, I don't correct them. I was like, yeah, fine. You're a kid, and you swerve your bike into my grass. But internally, like, a little part of me just is like, oh.
See, that doesn't bother me at all. Now, if they're doing it like unnecessarily, like especially if they're riding their bike through the grass just to trench it, that would make me mad.
It drives me. And then
but like especially if they're here at my house playing with my kids, and they're all riding bikes, they're gonna ride in the grass. Like, I don't care. To me, the grass is for playing. That's why it's there. Like, we grow grass because it's nice to play in for the kids. So that's it's like, yeah, your kids play in the grass. Now don't beat it up.
I saw my son hacking up my grass with a golf club the other day, and I was like,
yeah, see, that's where some correction. He was just swinging. He wasn't intentionally hacking up the grass.
No, but he was swinging a golf club.
Right, and just that's what happens. I mean, the same thing happens when I swing a golf club.
And here's the deal: the thing, yeah,
David Niles' excavation crew.
But the thing about my front yard, and it's very different than yours, is that it's all fescue.
Yeah, you got to reseed always.
If it dies, I don't get it back until I have to spend more money.
It's just like always in sales, always be prospecting.
Yeah.
With fescue, always be overseeding.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, so I have a little bit more of a frustration with it because it takes a lot more time. It's a lot harder to make it look nice, and it takes a lot more money.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to use that.
But the seeding is not expensive. I mean,
yes, it is.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, every year to do it.
How much is a bag of seed?
$100 bucks.
No kidding?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's ridiculous.
So that's not fun to do.
You got to switch to what is it, buffalo grass or something? There's another one you can do that.
Yeah. You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's why I didn't want to get into that. I didn't want to waste the time, but.
Don't be a curmudgeon, Adam.
I know.
It's just money.
I will be.
Adam, it's just money.
I'll just make more of it.
It's just money.
It's working out for other people.
What are you doing with it? I mean, you just gonna sit there and hoard it? You hoarder. You're a hoarder.
You struggled to even say that.
Tell your wife, quit hoarding. To tell you to quit hoarding. She's not a hoarder. Are you ready?
Yeah, you better get going. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. We're talking about, is there sex in heaven? And obviously the first thing you think of is no. Or at least that was my first thought. It was like, no. Okay, next question.
Yeah, I'm good at this game.
Yeah. Is there another true or false or something like that? 'Cause
right.
I can do that one as well. And as I was reading it, obviously there's more to the question. It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So do you want? How about this? I'll let you start it off. Kick it off.
Okay. So sex is something that you are. It's not something that you do. You know, like everybody's filled out forms. You know, you got a new doctor, and so you're filling it out, and it says sex, male or female. And so that's really what. When he says yes, there's sex in heaven, it's because in heaven you're a man now. You will still be a man in heaven. As persons, human persons are a body-soul composite. So we are not a neutral spirit. Like he uses the example of like driving a machine, a male machine, and other spirits drive female machines. No. You are a man. Your soul is a man's soul. Your wife has a woman's soul. Okay, and so the body is actually just an outward animation of your anima, your soul. So that it is the soul that animates the body, and the body expresses the soul. So they go together.
Right.
And so yes, there will be sex in heaven because there will be men and women in heaven, and so that's kind of the
launching point.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think it's important to remember, like, okay, obviously, if there are men and women, if there are two different sexes, they're complementary to each other, you know, and they're masculine and they're feminine. And when it's really funny, he says in here, he says traditional expectations that men be men and women be women are confused because we no longer know what to expect men and women to be. Yet, even though confused, the expectations remain.
Right.
And that, I mean, I'm quoting from that article.
Yeah, there's just something inside of us that yearns for something more, you know, than what the mainstream media tells us to be. You know, it's not in the news now, but you know, there was all that toxic masculinity junk all over the place, and
right.
Really, what they were talking about was just wimpy masculinity. It wasn't
not masculinity.
It certainly wasn't masculinity, right?
Right, and because so the thing is obviously the more a man lives out his masculinity, he realizes that it's not for him but for other people. It's a self-service, self-servant, self-denying,
and that goes along
principle.
with his authority. The authority of the man in the home is the same. It's not for him, but it's for the benefit of other people.
Right, and the more he embraces that and comes to grips of that reality, the more he's even able to not only embrace his masculinity but also help the feminine, his wife.
Right.
You know, because the beautiful thing that God did was He created both male and female and made us like a unit, made us compatible with one another.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the more a man embraces who he is, the more he is able to help even the woman in what she needs, and vice versa. The more she embraces who she is, the more she's able to help the man.
Right.
And so because if you start out confusing those two things, the domino that falls from that and the repercussions of that is kind of where we are a lot today.
He uses a good example in here about how men and women seem to always yearn for the prior year, like yesteryear's stereotypes where, you know, you have romance and chivalry and, you know, all of these things. And he talks about how the reason for that is because those stereotypes were closer to the truth. It's not that they were perfect, and he talks about ways in which they were flawed, but they were closer to the truth than the stereotypes
the archetype.
Of today. Right, exactly. What is the real calling of man and woman?
Right.
You know, we still want Romeo and Juliet to love each other.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of he uses that example in the article, and I think it really tells the story well. It's a good example.
Right. Yeah. And you know, the further if we start messing up the harmony between man and woman, then there's problems that affect, that come to fruition, which is kind of leading into the next topic, or his next point, which is the difference between chauvinism and egalitarianism.
Right.
And we were talking about this off air, Dave, is that a lot of times, the chauvinism, which is definitions are key. So we'll start there. Chauvinism is when you think one sex is superior to the other, which follows that the sexes,
which really means that you think men are superior to women.
Right. Which follows, that they're intrinsically different by nature, and so if men and women are different by nature, then they must be different in value.
Right. And even the word superior is a little bit, it's not as good, because men are superior to women in some ways. We are superior to them in strength. We are mostly superior to them in height. But so there are some ways we are superior, but we are not of greater value.
Right. We're talking about intrinsic value.
Yeah, women are superior to men in other ways. So, but the real question is, are men more valuable? Are they better than women? And that is no.
That's absolutely
right.
False.
Exactly.
Right. But because of that buy-in to a lot of men years and years ago, I think that was the seed that was planted of what the feminism movement is today.
Right.
It launched the feminism movement, which is like the egalitarianism part,
right,
where everybody is equal, everybody is the same, no one is different.
Well,
they're irreplaceable. They're
not
very
just that
replaceable.
they're equal. Not just that they're equal. Egalitarianism would go beyond saying that men and women are equal, but that they have sameness. That there's no difference between men and women.
Yeah, they complete substitute.
Yeah, other than you just have a different body, but that's the only difference. That men don't have different proclivities to certain things.
Right.
That we are exactly the same on the inside.
Which is why I personally, am against that type of feminism, because you're taking all the bad things that men did, and you're embracing those.
Right.
The self-serving, the absence, the doing things for your own self.
Right.
That is what the feminism movement is becoming today.
Right.
And that is the bad things that men did years ago.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. And so if you understand that chauvinism is obviously a bad thing, but egalitarianism is equally bad. I mean, this is not something that we want to promote.
The ironic thing about chauvinism, or about feminism, is that it ends up enslaving women in the very things that they sought to be free from.
Right.
They were like, oh, we're sexual oppressiveness, or whatever it may be, freedom. They wanted freedom to do what they want. So now they're trapped in jobs, and they say, well, we can sleep around too, just like men can. And so it's like, you're in the same spot, except it's worse. You don't have a husband who loves you. At least before,
And this goes back
something.
But this goes back to the reason why this is all happening is because men weren't being men. Men weren't being virtuous
Absolutely,
men.
right. Yeah, it's not an either or. That's the thing.
Right.
And so it's not chauvinism. It's not egalitarianism.
Right.
It's authentic masculinity and authentic femininity.
Right.
If you are a woman, embrace your femininity.
Right.
What really bugs me a lot is that women seem to reject acceptance of their beauty as one of the gifts that they possess from God. Because I think that they have been told that, oh, if you are viewed as beautiful, then you're demeaning. It's like, oh yeah, all you are is a pretty face. That kind of downplays your other, your intellect, or maybe some of the other gifts that you might have. But I really, really hate that, because women are beautiful. Like, the female form possesses a beauty that the male form simply does not. Men are not beautiful.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
I mean, they're just not. But the female form, and it's so interesting, because really men and women are so similar. We both have faces. We, our bodies are almost exactly the same. But there's just this hint of a difference between them that is, it's just astronomical in its outcomes. Just that it's so. Women are beautiful. They should embrace their beauty.
Right.
I really, it saddens me to see women reject their beauty in an attempt to be like respected, I think is what it is. Do you know what I'm talking? I mean,
no, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, but I think that we got to understand that obviously by nature we are different, but in value we're sons and daughters of God, and so we're intrinsically valuable. This is why the pro-life movement is where it is today. We're trying to be making sure that we're protecting life, because it's intrinsically valued. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. It's intrinsically valued because it's made in the image and likeness of God.
Right.
And if that's the case, if our differences are natural, when we get into heaven, it will be even more of it'll be even a bigger difference because grace perfects nature.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So there's going to be even a bigger difference in that aspect. The higher you go up in this hierarchy, the more the differences are showcased or magnified.
Yeah.
Because God is the creator of all. So angels and us are different, just like we are different than animals.
Right.
And that reality is exemplified even the higher you get up in the hierarchy of God.
Yeah. So there's a dualistic view
of God, but of
nature.
Of nature,
right, creation, yeah. So the dualistic view of the human person would say, once again, that there's the soul, which is apart from the body. And that would kind of make the body an artificial add-on to the soul, that the human person is just a soul. And so if that was the case, then the body would have no place in heaven. But as Catholics, we know that the body is natural. It is part of our nature.
Right.
And so it'll be amplified. In heaven, we will be, our masculinity will be even more, it'll be more than it is here.
Right, exactly. And if sexuality is a gift from God, then our sexuality will also be heightened when we get into heaven, not diminished.
Interesting.
Which is, which will lead us to our next point when we get back.
Okay.
We've actually done pretty well so far.
So.
I thought we wouldn't be where we are at this point.
Last segment?
Yeah, we're at our last segment, but we'll keep going.
Is there 2 points?
Yeah, we have still 2 points to go, and then kind of like a
Dos más.
Let me sum up kind of thing. Conclusion.
Is the sum up. This is the sum up. We are summing up.
We're summing up.
Yeah. The whole thing is summing up.
Let me sum up. Yeah, this is the shorter summa
of... We'll have to do the summa of the summa if you want to...
Are you going to sum it up for the radio?
No, we'll just tell them to go check us out on our podcast.
Yeah. Sorry.
That was rude.
Ready?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan and Jim Spencer. Guarding the door. Don't even try to come in here. So, before we get back to the topic, I just want to tell you what I was doing today, because it was really nice.
Okay.
Tomorrow is the feast of St. Hyacinth. He's a Polish Dominican saint from like the 1100s. He was buds with St. Dominic. And he had like some miracles that he did about feeding a whole bunch of people. He invented the pierogi.
Just delicious.
I'm Polish, and so our family got together today, and for hours we cranked out probably 100 pierogies.
Nice. Can I have some of them?
I probably can. They were delicious.
I love pierogies.
But it was just really great, like sitting around. There's just something fun about getting together as a family and working on a project. Like,
yeah, there
you know, and it's not like, doing a puzzle. Puzzling is fun, doing a puzzle, but like here we were doing something we're gonna eat, and there's just like something very like satisfying at a deep down, like this is what we're like, this is fulfilling me as a person, right, doing this with my family. And so it was just a great idea. It's my mom's idea. We're a Polish family, but and everybody likes pierogies, so, and pretty easy to make. I mean, it's a lot of work. There's you have to make a lot of dough, but it's nothing is, you're not gonna like mess it up really.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, that was fun. I just wanted to throw that out there. Friday we had our Maximilian Kolbe party.
That was fun.
It's been a big weekend. Kolbe, the Assumption, and I mean, Saint Hyacinth is not well known, but
it was for you guys.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So anyway, just want to throw that out there.
Cool. Okay, so we're talking about is there sex in heaven, and right out at the other side of that break, we were talking about how in heaven everything that we have now that is a gift from God by nature is going to only be heightened. It's only going to become better. It's not going to be diminished.
Right.
Because God can't take away what He's already given to us.
Think about how big my biceps will be in heaven. That
really?
is going to be incredible. Like, I think probably there's a lot of people who are really looking forward to that.
I don't know, dude. I don't think so. I don't even know how to. I don't even know what to say about that.
Kidding.
Okay, so but sex is spiritual, obviously, because if there is
right, because it involves the person.
Right, the person. Right, so because we are body, souls, composites, sex is a spiritual thing as well.
Right, so it's not just your body having sex with when a man and woman, when a husband and wife make love, it's not just their bodies that are involved. It's their persons. It's the union of persons.
Right, and this, he even says this, that sex happens between the ears before it happens between the legs.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
Yeah. And I thought that was a good point.
It's a good point,
So, sex happens between the ears before it happens between, or more importantly, whether it happens before or not, but the most important part is really taking place, in your intellect, in when that gift of self.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the most important part. And so, I mean, that's why new life can spring from this, because it is the whole person with the whole person.
Right.
Which
is, this is a strange concept, I think, to think about, like, the soul is sexual, because a lot of people today, we struggle with either materialism or, like what you talked about in the last break, was dualism, that the soul and the body are completely separate and you can't.
There's so much of that in our culture.
Right.
And it's like people don't even realize that that's what they're doing sometimes. When they talk about, people in heaven are going to become an angel. It's like, no, actually they won't. Angels don't have bodies. And, I'm not trying to be too strict on people when they say that, but it's just not true.
Right. Yeah. So the conclusion is because sexuality is innate, it's natural, it's pervasive, like it encompasses the whole body, not the whole person, not just the body, but the soul as well.
Right.
And we know this also. He brings out this this point that I thought was really good. He talks about how complex the soul is, and how we all understand this in the fact of either suffering or joy. There's so much more immense suffering in the soul than there is the body, and there's so much more immense joy in the soul than there is the body. That's why the agony in the garden with Jesus was such a big, was a big deal. Like, he was agonizing, his soul was agonizing over what was about to happen, and I think we all understand this. Like, I've had times where I was so mentally, emotionally, like anxiety ridden that you hear people like either banging their head against the door, or pulling out their hair, being so fidgety that they hurt themselves or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's because they're trying to take away this pain, this interior pain by physical pain. I'd rather have the physical pain than the interior pain.
Right.
And so because the soul is so complex that it encompasses more than just the body, it's the whole person, body and soul.
Right.
And so anyway, I thought that was really cool how he kind of brought that out and how complex the soul is.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out when we get to heaven. It's like one of those things. It's hard to really know, but I can only imagine what it's like to see a person. Because right now we see the person's body. You can gaze into someone's eyes and you can kind of see more than just their body. But like in heaven, we will gaze upon their person. We will see all of them. And I think that's there is sex clearly is a foreshadowing of a heavenly reality. There's something about it that does uplift us. The word ecstasy, which actually means to like come out of yourself. And so like there is something about it that's like drawing us to heaven. But I think part of it is just that heaven will be such an intimate thing because we will see and know each other. Like we kind of, even the Bible uses that word to like, to know, whoever knew his spouse. And it means that, now they made love. And so I think there's an analogy there between possibly what it might be like in heaven, just to look and gaze upon one another and to have knowledge of one another, not in a sexual way, not in an intercourse way, but in a complete way.
Yeah,
I see you, and just to be able to give, we'll be able to give ourselves completely to each other, in this as we gaze upon the Trinity, which is itself a complete gift of self. This Trinitarian love. And so as we imitate that and draw closer to it in heaven, we will seek to do the same things with ourselves, as we're in communion with the communion of persons, and we're in communion with one another, so it's just, there's a lot of deep, I can't wait to, we'll find out,
Yeah. But as we work out our salvation,
definitely
in
a lot
fear
of stuff,
and trembling.
Right, but there's just something about the act of new life that just causes great pleasure, and so one thing I've speculated, this is just my own speculation, is that Mary, when she conceived Jesus in her womb, probably experienced the greatest physical pleasure. I mean, actually physical pleasure of any person in the world. That's just my own theory.
Well, Aquinas says that he said that sexual intercourse was much more pleasurable before the fall.
Sure. I mean,
that makes sense.
Of course it was. I mean,
right.
That is because that's part of our nature. And our nature was darkened, because of the fall. So we lost touch with our true selves. And so Mary, not having a fallen nature, would have, in my estimation, and also just her total gift of self, and who is she conceiving,
right.
Just the yes.
It's a very interesting thing to think about.
So I think that it was probably a true ecstasy. It was so pleasurable, she was, almost died. Who knows? That's just a theory. I don't want to get too distracted on it.
No, but I mean, I think that's a good point, because all earthly realities point towards the heavenly reality that we'll have. So, God made this, and in His creation is good, and everything is going to be only heightened when we get into heaven. That was good to begin with, compared to right here on earth.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, and that kind of kind of goes into the last point that he's talking about, is that sex is cosmic. So not only does sex go up as far as obviously as we get higher up, the difference between angels are even more aware. You're more aware of the differences between you and angels, and the differences between you and other people, the other saints, and all the communion of saints, but it also goes down, right?
Yeah, well, and the point he makes here is, in most languages, nouns and verbs have gender. And that's actually what gender is. Gender has never applied to the human person. It's only recently that sociologists have tried to apply gender, like, there's this gender spectrum and nonsense. Gender has always referred to the tense of verbs and nouns, how to conjugate properly words in other languages. That's what gender is. But it does, we still call them masculine and feminine nouns. It's like, the ocean is feminine. And if you notice, there tends to be a theme. The ocean is a very receptive,
right.
thing. So it's obvious. It makes sense why it's feminine.
Sure.
An interesting one is in Latin. Farmer is a female noun. Farmer is female. Yeah, it's just kind of, that is like an anomaly almost. But all of creation, humanity has known this from the beginning. This is his point. I mean, these languages go back thousands of years. Yes. Would you say thousands? I would.
Yes.
Yeah. Hundreds of thousands. Yes. So from the very beginning, humanity has understood that all of creation is made this way, and we participate. Our maleness and femaleness, we participate in the ordinary form of creation. So that it is obviously so important that God put maleness and femaleness in all of His creation.
Yeah, and he even brings out Dr. Peter Crift even talks about this. We're catching the end of this for our show, but try it. Subscribe to our podcast, because we're going to be talking more about this.
Yeah, and our YouTube channel,
and we'll continue this conversation. You can go to thecatholicmanshow.com for more information. But hang in there with us. If you're on Facebook or podcast, we'll be right back. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus.
You can change the camera angle if you want to.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah. Okay. So, he even brought up the point. Dr. Peter Kreeft did. Kreeft? Did you say Kreeft? Kreeft?
Yeah.
I've said Kreeft like my whole life.
Oh yeah, but I know it should be
Kreeft.
It's Kreeft. That should be Kreeft.
But it's Kreeft.
It's Kreeft. Like
Kreeft.
Like Kreft. Like
Kreft.
Take away an e.
Kreft. Okay.
Just
Man, I would love to have him on the show someday.
There's a silent e.
That'd be awesome to have
One
him.
of the e's is silent.
Okay. That'd be awesome to have him on the show one day.
Yes, I would love to do that. Somebody knows him.
Hook us up.
Send him to us.
Would love to have it. So he even brings us up how the male and femaleness in nature is all the way brought down into the electron proton.
Yeah, I thought that was a great example.
Yes, because the electron
that the two pursue each other.
Yeah, the electron pursues the proton.
Right.
And knows that his rival is another electron.
Yeah.
And so they were there's this art of pursuing one another, and he uses the example of like, well, that's that is a type of love. It's an attraction towards one another that they're
the opposite, right?
Yeah, that they're
because the electron and the proton are two like made for each other physically. They have and just as man and woman are physically made for each other. When Adam first laid eyes on Eve, at last, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He can see that her body is made for his body.
Right.
And without the woman, a man's body all by itself makes no sense.
Right.
It's a nonsensical arrangement. So it's only when you encounter the female that you understand who you are.
Right, because man, as the Bible says, man is not made to be alone.
Right, it's not good for man to be alone.
Right,
and the same is true with the electron and the proton. And so the electron wants to gravitate and orbit the proton. Interestingly enough, sidebar. Not everybody. Many people think electricity flows from positive to negative. It does not. It flows negative to positive. Yeah, the electrons are the ones that were moving, right? Mm-hmm. And so and it was actually after that they made all of the formulas for electricity that they realized we're wrong. Actually, it's the electrons moving, not the protons. But it just basically that just made all the answers negative, and so they said it still works.
It still works.
Just ignore the negative answers that we're gonna get, and it's fine.
It's the same thing.
Just make them positive or keep them negative. Doesn't matter.
Well, it's so
that was a sidebar.
Good sidebar.
Yeah.
So, but because we're made for communion, the Trinity is a communion. Like you said, the Trinity is communion. We're going to be a communion of saints in the the mystical body of Christ. We're made for one another, right?
Yeah.
We're made to be together, and because God made us to where male and female are complementary towards one another, we realize that we become the most that God created us whenever we are self-denying, self-sacrificial, like we had talked about. And the highest form of pleasure is always comes with self-forgetfulness. When we stop forgetting about ourselves.
When we start forgetting about ourselves.
Did I say
you said stop. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Start forgetting about ourselves.
And forgetting's not the right word, but yeah, when you put yourself
out of the
behind
equation.
others, yeah.
Yeah, and so and that's what we're gonna do. When we've killed the egotistical pride within ourselves, when Christ in His mercy and justice has killed the pride that is within ourselves, and we're not sitting here thinking about ourselves, and it'll be a complete giving of ourselves to the communion to the body of Christ, the mystical body of Christ.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a crazy thing to think about.
So I was thinking about this today. This is also a little bit off topic, but it's about humility.
Okay.
I was realizing, I was praying this morning, and it occurred to me that humility is so important because as you grow in the spiritual life, you seek to empty yourself so that you can be more, people will see you less and more of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
The more you do that, the more you will be praised by others. Rightly so, because A, it is right to praise Christ everywhere that he is found.
Mm-hmm.
But you will just be the kind of person that people are gravitated. You'll just be an attractive person, and so you're going to receive more praise. There will be a limit when your praise, the amount of praise you receive, will stop you in your progress. It is only by further humility that you can even grow in virtue anymore, because the Christ that people are authentically seeing in you causes praise, causes them to praise you, which ultimately blocks you from growth. So that's why I was realizing humility is always so important. It never stops being important, because you have to continue to empty yourself so that you can continue to grow.
Right. Because the more people see Christ in you, the more that they're going to tell you they see Christ in you. That's attractive, because holiness is attractive.
And that's not unjust of them to do so, because if they are finding Christ in you, Christ should be praised where he is found.
Sure.
Yeah. So not that they're worshiping you. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. But anyway, I was just thinking about that in prayer today.
That's interesting.
I just thought I'd share it with you. And the 17 people who are still listening.
Nice. But C.S. Lewis has this interesting story that he talks about when somebody asked him, is there sexual intercourse in heaven? And he gives this tale that, that there's a father and mother, and it's come to the point of the birds and the bees talk with their son.
Yeah.
And so the parents are sitting there telling the son, here's how a baby is made, here's what love is, here's what sex is, sexual intercourse is. And the kid stops, and he's sitting there thinking about it for a minute and listening and kind of nodding his head, and then says, like, well, can I eat candy while I'm having sex? And the idea is because the kid thinks that if sex is so pleasurable, that, like my parents are saying, it's such a pleasurable thing. Well, the most pleasurable thing that I can think of is eating candy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 12 years old, or whatever. I don't know whatever the age is. So candy is the most pleasurable thing that I can think of.
Well, let's pair it up with candy. So candy is the best thing.
Can I double dip here? And have candy and have sex at the same time?
Right.
And so he makes this analogy, saying like, asking is if we can have sexual intercourse in heaven is equivalent to almost asking the kid asking the parents, can I eat candy while having sex? It's like, you don't understand. I understand. I know that you think that candy is the most pleasurable thing that you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I've been there.
Right.
I've filled my mouth with as many Pop Rocks as I can possibly put in my mouth.
Yeah.
I get that is pleasurable. Like, I understand.
Yeah, it is awesome.
It's awesome.
It pops all over the place. It's crazy.
Like, it's crazy. But sex is so much better.
Right. And we were talking about this beforehand, and I was telling you about Christopher West uses a very similar analogy. I think it serves a little bit better than the one that C.S. Lewis uses. He talks about how when you're a kid, chewing bubble gum is like the best thing that you know of. It's your favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then learning about this.
Did you ever get the big chew gum?
Oh,
the big league league gum?
Or like the one that was like gum powder that you could pour in your mouth, and it like all would clump together. It was really gross, but like it looked like it was a chewing tobacco pouch,
What was that gum by the foot? What was that? Where you pulled it
fruit by the foot.
No, that was a fruit snack.
Else.
Where it was the...
But yeah, it's like, a pink, and you could like
pull it
way out and just keep...
Just chewing that gum.
Gum has totally changed in our lifetime. Like
Bazooka bubblegum was awesome too.
Do you
For
remember
like 3 seconds, Bazooka bubblegum was awesome.
Like the zebra striped gum or something. Yeah. I forget what it was. But gum used to, like, the flavor lasted 20 seconds.
Right.
And today, I don't know what they did. I don't know how they figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like most stuff that's changed in our lives. Like, I wonder how they did that. But man, gum's way. Kids these days don't know how good they got it.
Right.
When they chew gum. But anyway, Christopher West was talking about kids chewing gum, and he said asking are we going to have sex in heaven is sort of like a couple who just on their wedding night, instead of consummating their marriage, sitting around chewing gum. He said sex in heaven, like obviously people will have bodies in heaven. So I suppose in theory, it would be physically possible to have sex in heaven. I mean, but the thing is, that's a ridiculous question because you're sitting there gazing at the beatific vision. So asking like, are we going to have sex in heaven is sort of like imagining a couple sitting around chewing gum on their wedding night instead of concept. I mean, it's like, no, nobody is doing that. Nobody has ever done that. Nobody will ever. It's just not, it's not a realistic thing to even wonder because the thing, you're in heaven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Gum, like,
well, and like,
you're worried about chewing gum,
right? And
this is your wedding night,
right?
You're not chewing gum,
right? And if you are,
nobody is though.
Yeah, nobody, right? Yeah, but earthly love is so passionate because heaven is full of passion. It's full of charity.
Yeah,
like this is the earthly. The earthly shadow is the heavenly reality, and so. Being in communion, there'll be way better ways of expressing love towards one another than this weird, awkward jigsaw puzzle of a person, with another person in communion with one another.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think Dr. Peter Kreeft.
Maybe it is Kreeft.
You're changing the name.
It is not Kreeft.
Okay.
I know that. And maybe it's Kreeft.
Okay.
You know what? Kind of play the middle ground between and a, like Kreeft.
Kreeft. Dr. Peter.
Right. Pete.
Yeah.
Dr. Pete. We'll call him Dr. Pete.
That'll probably not get him on our show by
PD.
Yeah. But so that's what he was trying to bring to the end of his this whole article was talking about like the ridiculousness of understanding of like the idea of how almost elementary that question is.
Right. Yeah.
And it's only because this is a gift that God has given us that is so pleasurable. That is a good, that is a natural good that'll be only exemplified in a higher degree.
Have you ever noticed how almost every single even political debate ultimately comes back to sex? Okay, so
I have not noticed this.
Yes. Almost always, every single thing that it's like, oh, I disagree with what you say, or I disagree with this stance. If you work it backwards, it almost always gets back to some sexual question or like a sexual deviation. And it's people justifying this, and it's incredible. If you sit there and work, you can do it with socialism. You can do it with most, not all, but a lot of leftist political policies. It ultimately comes back to what they would consider liberation or justification of sexual deviations. And once you realize that and you think about it more, it starts to make sense that here our sexual powers are probably the most potent. That is the gift that we have. Okay, we have authority. We borrow authority from God. That's like part of Him that we have, so to speak, if you want to put it that way. The ability to author life is without a doubt the most godlike thing that we can do.
Well, yeah, and obviously, the best thing that Christ could give us, the biggest gift is always the most, the one that is most perverse, right? The greatest glory is always the one that is tried to be diminished.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that sex is one of the biggest sins around since probably the fall of man.
Yeah, and that's a whole different debate because actually, Dante would disagree with you.
Dante would, yeah.
But really, what I'm trying to say is like this is why it's so important to get sex right and to understand this part of your personhood, because if you're not willing to wield this potency that you have rightly, then you will be led astray.
Because
even in your intellect, like you will get who you are wrong if you're not willing to be open to life, if you're not willing to be fruitful, if you're not
willing
you know
to self-sacrifice. Like that's the whole thing. Is like the understanding of like, oh, what's in it for me? That's the whole thing. Is right. Is in today's world with pornography, with masturbation, with what all these things is like it's self-gratifying. It's like it's all about me. It's like, what am I going to get out of this?
Yeah.
And that's not that's the exact opposite of what heaven is it's a giving of oneself. And that's what marriage is. It's a giving of oneself to the other. It's a self-sacrificial love. It's it's Christ dying for his church. It's dying for his bride, the church.
Right.
And that's what we're obviously called to do is die for our wives as Christ died for his church. And so it's this sacrificial love. And what happens is obviously pride is the biggest sin, and so it becomes what's in it for me, and not what can I give to them.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I like to think of it that your sexual powers, your sexual drive, your sexuality, your maleness, but also your intimate, the intimate part of you. Is like a jet engine that's supposed to propel your person, in the right direction. And when you get it wrong, it is like pointing those engines the wrong way, and your whole the rocket ship of your person just gets imploded straight into the ground. It just has a way of destroying the image that you're supposed to be. Because we're created in God's image, but we're supposed to image Him the right way, and when we choose to sin, when we choose to live a life that is not in accordance with the natural law, with the divine law, then we fail to fully encompass the image that God created us to be. We cease to be the image that He created us in.
Right.
And so getting your sexual powers, getting your sexuality wrong, is like it just immediately happens because you're created to be a man. And a man is a certain thing. I mean, masculinity is a certain way of living, so to speak, or
specific nature.
It's more than that. That's a bad way to say it. I don't want to say it that way. But you are a man. Right. Be a man. And if you're not being a man, then your whole life is going in a wrong direction.
Which is like, and that's what. At the beginning of the show, we talked about, and I just love what he says about this. The traditional expectations that men be men and women be women are confused because we no longer know what to expect as men being men and women being women. Right. Yet we still hold them to that. We still know, we still expect them to do that.
Christopher West says that the most important question a man can ask himself is, what does it mean to be a man? And I think he's right, because obviously then follows, some of the answers to that question is, well, a man is someone made in the image of God, who follows, Christ, so it's like someone might say, no, the most important question is, how do I follow God's will, or, whatever those things. But those are actually answers to the first question, of what does it mean to be a man? If I'm a man, what does it mean? Because it's the most fundamental thing. From the day you're born, we already know certain things about you. We know, actually, if you just think about it, how much of God's will can be determined for you on the day of your birth. The fact that you're a man, we already know a lot of things that are not part of God's will for your. You're not called to be a mother. You're not called to be a wife. You're not called to be a sister. There's so much of. Yeah. We can already now know so much of God's plan for you simply because you were born a man. Or a woman, right? So that is the fundamental question. It's the very first thing of who we are as people, as persons.
Which is why the devil has done such a good job of attacking that.
Yeah, and it's why we're so concerned about whether or not there's sex in heaven, because it's at the very foundations of who we are. This is like our deepest identity. I am a man. What does that mean? There's so much identity crisis right now in the world, right? And it's terrible. It's heartbreaking, to see people who really I don't think they're ingenuine. I mean, I think they really are. You know, when they say like, "Oh, I'm non-binary," or like whatever. I don't know what all the right words are, that they use, but that makes my heart break, just because I think that they are genuine in the vast majority of cases. I mean, I take them at their word that they really feel that way about themselves, and like, what a tragic. Can you imagine? Like, what if you just didn't know that you were, like, what if you were confused about the fact that you were a man? Like, I've never wondered about that. I'm a man. I mean, look at me. I'm a boy.
Right.
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 So like, it's so foundational into our understanding of who we are. Like, even your relationship with your mother. Am I a son or am I a daughter? And just think about the differences that makes. I mean, it really is. The implications go on and on and on. I'll just stop there because otherwise I'll keep going on and on.
No, I mean, I think you're right. And that's why I thought this was such an interesting topic, because I thought, one, it makes you think, right? It makes you, at the very beginning, of the show, I said, why are you spilling so much ink over such a simple question? And then as you keep going and you dive into the question and you understand, like, yes, sex is a person, or sex. Is there sex in heaven? Yes. Is there sexual intercourse in heaven? No. I mean, because even the question of is there sexual intercourse in heaven?
It's a ridiculous question.
It's a ridiculous question,
right? Because you fail to understand, as I'm sure we all do not appreciate the beatific vision. I mean, there's no way we do. We just can't even.
You're close.
I mean, pretty close.
In all humility,
not there,
right?
Just not quite,
right?
Yeah, but one thing. He said in here, which I thought was really good, was like, "Oh, well, don't we think about, especially as men, don't we think about sex all the time?" And he said, "No, actually,
we don't think about sex at all.
You fantasize about it, or
I actually wanted to start it off.
You dream about it, you
act it,
you plan for it, or whatever. But you don't actually stop to think about it, to ponder it in its consequences, in its beauties, in its like strangeness, because." It's kind of strange, really, if you think about it. Like, it's so weird. It's like the weirdest human. There's nothing else in the world that is anything close to it. Like in your day-to-day life. And so, like, I love that point that he made. How it's like, no, actually, men just people really hardly think about it at all. Like, really think about it.
They do a lot of things except think about it.
Right.
They do almost everything.
They pursue it a lot.
They pursue it. They dream about it. They fantasize about it. They act it.
Yeah. But they don't actually think about it. Right.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So
it was fun to think about for this episode.
Good. That was, I hope.
Don't you think so?
Yeah.
Don't you think so, Adam?
Well, and that's, even last episode you talked about, like, your whole goal in life is to make people stop and think about things.
The everyday. Like,
thing.
There's so many, like, God put so much of his plan and his beauty and his love into just the day-to-day stuff. The stuff that's so right in front of you.
Right.
Like, at our judgment, we're just going to be like, oh, how did I not see that?
Right.
I literally did that every day. And God is like, I know, I love you. Like, yeah, I know.
Right.
I just love you so much.
Right.
I was there all the time. It's like, wow. They said that when I was down there. They said that. I had no idea what they meant.
Right. Yeah. So I think that was good. Overall, what do you think, Jim?
People would like to know if you would link to article.
Yeah. I just saw that. We are definitely going to link the article.
Oh yeah. We'll link the article. Yeah, that's no problem. I was talking about, like, what your thoughts though were, Jim.
Speechless.
Jim is speechless.
That didn't make me feel good about it.
Still don't try to break
although after Holy Mass today, he was like, "Are we recording tonight?" And I was like, "Yes." And his wife, Lady Kathy, was there, and
Lady Catherine sounds
Lady
better.
Catherine, yeah, was there, and I was like, "Yes, we are. We're recording tonight." And I think he either asked or I imposed. The topic is, do we have sex in heaven?
And is there sex in heaven?
Is there sex in heaven?
Do we have sex in... the same question, but...
Is there sex in heaven?
Yeah.
And Kathy kind of was like, you could tell she like had some questions, but she's like, well,
I'm leaving.
I'll wait for the episode. And then she looked over at Jim and she goes, you're going to make him blush the whole time. Look at him. He's blushing. And he was. I looked over at him and he was like, he was as red as a tomato. Like he was like blushing, thinking about the episode. So I enjoyed that. And then I realized, oh, this is something I did not realize. I did not realize that I can make Jimbo Baggins over there blush.
Whatever, we do it like all the time.
I just didn't realize that his face turns red.
Yeah. It's not the scotch.
It's not the scotch. It's us. So I was like, yes, this is something that I'm going to put in my back pocket. What'd you say?
Justifiable anger.
Yeah, justifiable anger. Yeah. So anyway.
Okay.
The camp out is filled up, I believe. I believe it's full. So
you got to get up pretty early in the morning if you want to come on the camp out.
Anyway.
But anyway. Yep. Good job. I'm going to end the video.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. El Sweet.